Preachers and their illustrations, where do they come up with this stuff? Welcome to another installment in the Over My Shoulder Bible Study series. These brief videos augment and supplement the sermon that I preach each week here with the Missouri Street Church of Christ in Baytown, Texas. Right now we've found ourselves of late in the book of Jeremiah in our church-wide Bible reading project known as Immerse. And Jeremiah, if nothing else, is saturated with symbolic actions. That is, God delivers his message to the people not only with words, but oftentimes with actions through his prophet. These actions do several things. They help bring clarity to the message. They make it more memorable. No doubt it could heighten the possibility for conviction to the message. And if nothing else, they raise curiosity on the part of any who may have witnessed it or heard of it. Chapter 32 gives a great example of a symbolic action in Jeremiah, and it provides the basis for the sermon this week. I won't try to talk about it a lot here. We'll save that for the sermon. The gist of it is that Jeremiah goes and buys a field just outside of Jerusalem. The only problem is it couldn't be worse timing. The city and that field is about to be overrun by an invading army. Probably not the best time to buy real estate. But there's a very good hopeful word that comes. I'll save that for the sermon. Let me give you some more examples of symbolic actions in Jeremiah. No claim for this list to be comprehensive, but it certainly hits, you might say, Jeremiah's greatest hits. Chapter 13, verse 1 through 11 is certainly one that raises curiosity and can't help but be memorable. It's a discussion of Jeremiah's underwear. God sends Jeremiah to the store to go get some underwear, and he's to wear it a while and not wash it. And then after a while, take it off and go bury it under a rock beside a river. Leave it there for a good while. Then come back and dig it up. And guess what? When he digs it up, surprise, surprise, it's good for nothing. And what's the point of the message? Well, the story goes on, and the point of the message is that, gulp, God's people are like Jeremiah's dirty underwear. They're not good for anything. They're ruined. It's a devastating message. It's one that may be hard to hear. Very few were willing to hear it in Jeremiah's time. But it's not what they wanted to hear, but it is what they needed to hear. It was an opportunity to get the point and to repent, to change their ways before the Lord. Chapter 16, the first 13 verses, the first half of the chapter, talk about another prop that God gives Jeremiah for his preaching. And this prop is himself. He is supposed to remain single, not marry. He's not supposed to have any children. He's not supposed to grieve with anybody who is in grief and mourning. He's not supposed to rejoice with anybody who's like getting married, happy. And so, what's the deal? Well, as the prophet explains the message that he's been given by God, the people seem to have removed themselves from the Lord. They don't want anything to do with God. And so God's going to show them in the life of Jeremiah himself what that looks like. A life of deadness inside to all that is emotion, and to be off and alone, separated from others. Chapter 13 provides another example of one of Jeremiah's symbolic actions. In fact, chapter 18 and chapter 19 do both of them give symbolic actions and involve matters of clay and a potter. Well, in the first case, the potter takes some clay and works it. God tells Jeremiah to go watch this man try to make this jar, as it were, or bowl. The only problem is it doesn't work out too well on the first attempt, and so the potter starts over and begins to make a different vessel. And the message is to the people and to Jeremiah in particular, this is what's going on. I'm the potter. The people aren't the potter. They're the clay, and I have the right to remake them how I want. And if I see things aren't turning out the way they should in their life, I'll start all over. Chapter 19, Jeremiah is to go buy a jar that's already been made, and then he's going to take it out in the presence of some of the priests and the elders in Jerusalem. He's to go to one of the gates of the city of Jerusalem. It's known as the Potsherd Gate, And there he's supposed to break that jar or that jug in their presence. And the message is that God says, as surely as this jar was smashed, I'm fixing to break the city of Jerusalem. I'm going to smash it as surely as this potter's vessel was smashed, and I'm going to smash it and break it in such a way that it cannot be mended. Well, the story goes on. Chapter 27, chapter 28 as well. 2 full chapters, another symbolic action. And here it is that God tells Jeremiah to go make a yoke and to put it around his neck. It's made out of wood and leather straps and such. And he's to wear this thing. And then he's going to be talking to some of the leaders of the smaller nations and kingdoms immediately around Judah. And what's the point? Well, God is telling these leaders, I want you to submit to the army that's going to come and invade you. Surrender, give up, submit. It's the Babylonians. And if you'll put yourself under their yoke, then things will go better for you. Well, of course, this is exactly the opposite of what the leaders want to hear. And so they oppose Jeremiah's message. And a particular prophet opposes Jeremiah and breaks up Jeremiah's yoke that he's made. And then an iron yoke is made in its place. I'll leave more of that story for you to discover. Chapter 35. This involves a portion of the people of God, the Rechabites. Now, the Rechabites were nomads. They were not settled agrarian people. And so vineyards were not a part of Rechabites' life. And the Rechabites, their earliest ancestor, never drank wine. And so all the way down through the years, none of the Rechabites drank wine. And so God shows up to Jeremiah and says, I want you to invite the house of the Rechabites to go up to the temple, and I want you to serve them wine to drink. Well, of course, they don't drink it. And then the point of the message God reveals through the prophet Jeremiah is that I don't get you people. You're my people, but you don't make much sense. Here, this portion of my people, the Rechabites, have always obeyed from the very beginning. But the rest of you, you seem to be bent on disobeying me on everything. So I'm going to make some of the Rechabites stand in my presence for all time. And as for the rest of you, you really don't want to know what happens. I'll leave that for you to discover the rest. Chapter 43, one last example of symbolic actions by the prophet Jeremiah. This involves Egypt. Yes, Jeremiah in Egypt now. And he's supposed to go up close to the palace of Pharaoh, and in the pavement in front of the palace, he's supposed to set or embed some large stones. Wow, how you could do that and get away with your neck is a good question, but that's what he does. And somehow he survives to tell the tale. And what's the point of the message? Well, the point of the message is that God is going to raise up the Babylonians not only to punish his people, the people of Judah, but also to whoop up on Egypt. And that the king of the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar, is going to set his throne right there on those very stones that Jeremiah has put down. And Nebuchadnezzar will burn the temples of the Egyptian gods. Well, what's the point of all this? God's always trying to get our attention with what he has to say to us. Sometimes there are actions that are designed to get our attention so that we can hear those words. Are you looking for what the Lord's trying to tell you? I pray you are, and I pray I am too, for life. Grace and peace be with us all.